Hello again. This is the third video in my Designing a Starship series, and there will be links in the description to the rest of the videos. This time I will talk about the advances and limitations of the technologies in original Zin. Science fiction stories have depicted the technology of space travel in a variety of different ways. Do they have molecular rearrangers to work with? Or do they still need a wrench to tighten a bolt? Is the Starship a luxurious cruiser filled with comfort and entertainment? Or is it drab and utilitarian? Do they have tractor beams, force fields, and holograms? How about teleporters? How advanced is their computer? The original Zin universe is filled with marvelous technologies, but only on the surface of the planets. A lot of technologies don't operate properly in space, so for a passenger aboard a crawl ship, it can be quite an adjustment. On the Malira, things were different. These space crawlers got through life with their hands and the tools they could carry. All the creature comforts of even moderate surface life were absent. The bed was not a support creche, it was just a mattress. A comfortable one, to be sure, but Walker couldn't remember the last time he had laid down in a bed that didn't tune into his comfort shifts. In his home, his personal computer had an interface that took up an entire room. He could be immersed in it. The computer viewers on the Malira were small. Normal communications weren't practical in a crawl ship's gyre field. The comms were actually hardwired through the ship. Even the chairs were different in space. Walker was used to ergoshell chairs that automatically adjusted the height, width, and support when you approached them. Here, the chairs were just metal structures with padded cushions. And if you watched the last video in the series, that is the same guy who tipped his chair over for an eternity. The main reason that things are so low-tech and hands-on in a crawl ship is the gyre field. The gyre field is generated by the engines. It's what enables them to transport from point to point. It's also what provides the artificial gravity. But it has its downsides. It affects electronics. All of the ship's clocks have to be entirely mechanical because electronic devices can't keep proper time in a gyre field. It affects the communications. On board the ship, signals can be sent through wires, but they can't even use the kind of radio waves that we do, which is kind of ironic. With the external devices, one ship can communicate with another over a great distance, but on board, you can't even use a walkie-talkie to talk to the other side of the ship. They can only use certain kinds of computers. There's not much automation, so the crew is used to using hand tools. In a lot of ways, the spacefarers live in much more primitive conditions than anyone on the surface of the planet. Along with all that, I had a lot of other considerations, like the atmosphere, which of course is constantly recycled and filtered. I even considered the plumbing. They obviously need water. So there's a water storage tank in the outermost level of the ship, and that water is moved through the ship using ordinary pipes, although I suspect that they spring fewer leaks than the plumbing of our era. And that the water has to be recycled and filtered just like the atmosphere does. So to make it practical, those water pipes run primarily to one particular area of the ship where all the baths are. They don't even have any kind of elevator on board. Once everyone was down, someone asked, "Why is it stairs and not lifts?" Neither Taza nor Hulk had to answer. Another passenger knew. It's in case there's any power problems. You need to be able to get around the ship even with the power out. And that's getting around the ship. Getting from the ship to the surface of a planet requires special aircraft called landers. The Malira 3 and all of the spacecraft in original Zin are spheres. They cannot land on the surface of a planet. They remain in space. So to get down, they have special aircraft designed to handle an atmosphere. So what should I talk about last? How about weapons? The fun stuff. The crew of a crawl ship typically carries weapons called stunners. Non-lethal because if you're a passenger ship, you don't want to kill the passengers if you can avoid it. But just as important, they need weapons that won't hurt the ship. In a more serious situation, they do use projectile weapons, guns called dusters, but even they're specialized. In a spacecraft, ordinary weapons were impractical. It didn't matter if you were the crew or an invader. You didn't want to fire holes through the walls, damaging systems, opening water pipes, or cutting power. In the outermost level, the danger was even greater. The hull of the ship was strong, but magnetic projectiles or energy weapons could possibly do damage. When a real gun was used, they employed duster rounds that didn't have much power to penetrate. They burst on impact. The odds of one damaging a metal wall or a crate was so remote it wasn't a worry. The chemical burst could do real damage to a person, though. And there are other weapons available, but you'll have to read the story to find out about that. And you can purchase your own copy of the ebook. We'll provide a link to the product page on Amazon. And if you do read it, then thank you. And if you like it, thank you twice. And if you convince other people to read it, then thank you 1,000 times. I'll see you in the next one.